knight. And he got hit in the leg with a cannonball and had to go through a lengthy convalescence. During that time, he had some sort of conversion experience and decided, this sounds familiar, I know, he wanted to start an order of warrior monks, elite warriors that would protect the Pope and would serve the Catholic Church unwaveringly. He came up with a name for this order. He called it Los Illuminados. Now, if any of you speak Spanish, you know that name means the illuminated ones. However, the Pope didn't like that name, and so they changed the name to the Society of Jesus. What's interesting, yeah, it's a little more catchy, don't you think? Anyhow, what's interesting about this is that if you read the exercises which St. Ignatius developed, you will find that they are profoundly occult. You can get them in most bookstores. They're called the Spiritual Exercises of St. Ignatius Loyola. And they were the beginning of what ultimately came to be the Illuminati mind control exercises. The next thing that happened was about 100 years later, operative and speculative masonry began to be born. Now, the Masons have been around for centuries as a stonemason guild, very much like today we have professional trade unions like the Carpenters Guild or the Plumbers Union or whatever, where you go through and you become an apprentice and a journeyman and a master carpenter. Well, they had the same thing hundreds of years ago, except back then people were illiterate. Except for a handful of people like the clergy and some nobility, very few people could read. And so if I was like, say, a Mason, and I came into a new place and I whipped out my local 122 Mason card and handed it to the guy on the job site, he'd, I don't know what this means. So instead, they developed a system of signs. Like, for example, if I would go like this, they would know I was an entered apprentice Mason. Simple. So it started out innocently enough. But then when the Protestant Reformation came along, all the cathedrals were stopped. The great cathedral building of Europe basically ground to a halt. And that was where the Masons got most of their employment. And so to make up for that fact, the Masons began to admit non-operative Masons. And these came to be known as speculative Masons. These were people who were just simply interested in learning the occult philosophies of Masonry. They didn't want to become stonemasons, and that is how the Masons stayed alive. This finally congealed formally into what is called the Mother Lodge in England in 1717. In London, at the Apple Tree Tavern, nice spiritual place, the first meeting formally of the Grand Lodge of England took place. And because most all modern Masonry comes from that place, this is called the Mother Lodge. The next thing that happened is that the Grand Orient came along about 60 years later. That's the most virulent anti-Christian form of Masonry that exists in the world today. Just a few years after that, on May 1st, which is a high satanic holiday, a gentleman by the name of Adam Weishaupt started a group called the Illuminati Ordnen, or the Order of the Illuminati. And this is what we're going to try and focus a lot of our time on over the next few minutes, because this is really the modern origin of the conspiracy. This is the guy right here. And as I said, his name is Adam Weishaupt. He was a professor, Jesuit trained, in canon law at the University of Ingolstadt in Bavaria. And he got the idea that, gee, wouldn't it be a wonderful thing to have a society within the society of Freemasonry that would work for the abolition of the monarchy, of the church, and of the family, and bring people back to a wonderful state of pure paganism. So he started putting together a hell broth that mixed 4 different things together: Islamic mysticism and magic, Jesuit mind control techniques that we've already mentioned, Masonic secrets of immortality, and drug-induced altered states of consciousness. He put these 4 things together and began to infiltrate the lodge all over Munich, all over Bavaria, and all over France. And he pushed this as a system of replacing the monarchy and the church with a hierarchy of noble philosopher kings, naturally led by him, who would rule the world with benevolent wisdom. Like most fanatics, he had a plan. And as good conspiracies go, it was a good one. He worked his way deeply, especially into the ranks of the French. And if you want to see the fruits of true Illuminism, look at what is known as the French Revolution. The French Revolution exists as kind of an antimatter version, if you will, of the American Revolution. Whereas a lot of the people that were involved in the American Revolution were Christians, in the French Revolution, Illuminism was holding sway. Anti-Christian doctrine, the reign of terror, the guillotine, which ate up thousands and thousands of lives, including the crown heads of France. This was what Illuminism was really all about, unfortunately. And sadly enough, it culminated in an event where they desecrated Notre Dame Cathedral. They enthroned a half-naked prostitute on the high altar and crowned her as the goddess of reason and put a torch in her hand. And believe it or not, this is the origin of the Statue of Liberty. It's not a nice, wonderful thing about freedom. That torch is the light of Lucifer. And that statue was built by a Mason, was designed by a French Freemason as a gift to American Freemasons. So I'm sorry if I just popped anybody's bubble there, but the Statue of Liberty is not a nice symbol. It's a symbol of the goddess of witchcraft, essentially, holding aloft the light of Lucifer. Now, Adam Weishaupt had a plan. He had a worldview. He thought history moved in a certain cycle, and he believed that if he could catch these cycles, it would basically enable him to rule the world. He saw history as being divided into 5 stages, and you see them there. This was called the Law of Fives. You have chaos, discord, confusion, bureaucracy, and aftermath. And here's how it worked. In chaos was what Adam Weishaupt believed was mankind's best and purest state. It was a state of what we would today call paganism, where you're just like the noble savage of Rousseau, hopping through the forest, gathering herbs, hugging trees. I mean, Al Gore would love this. You know, basically being a witch and worshiping a mother goddess, and everything is happy and joyful and tra-la-la-la-la. Well, needless to say, this couldn't last forever. Into this Edenic state comes the serpent. Except in this case, the serpent's name is Jehovah. And Jehovah brings with him the evil cult of monotheism. Now, monotheism is the belief that there's only one true living God. That's what Jews believe, that's what Christians believe, and it's even what Muslims believe. But it's diametrically opposed to paganism. And this is why pagans hate Christians so much, is that we insist that we've got the only right way. If you talk to a witch, they'll say something like, well, that's your truth and I've got my truth, and everybody's got their own truth, and it's blah, 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 you know. It's sort of like, you know, they've got cream filling between their ears, amen? Anyway, that's why we call New Agers Twinkies. They got cream filling between their ears. Anyway, what happened is that the evil monotheists, according to Weishaupt, this isn't me, this is him talking, so to speak, that they oppressed the happy pagans and made them follow rules. They made them stop fornicating in the bushes with everything that moved. They made them stop smoking dope. They made them stop worshiping false gods. They took all their fun away. And this caused a lot of discord and a lot of confusion, because the pagans kept wanting to keep doing all of this stuff because it was fun. And so this caused the third stage to come along. And the third stage is confusion. And this happened because, the monotheists had to come up with a reason for why these stupid pagans were still insisting on doing this. And so they invented the idea of the devil. And the devil was making them do it. And so they tried to introduce a devil figure to explain the problems they were having, but that didn't work. So the synthesis of stage 3 failed, and this leads to stage 4, which is bureaucracy. I'm sure none of us have any idea what that is like. And